to connect us all and say we're not alone. We're not in this by ourselves. But when we get that shame, doubt, and fear, all of those feelings that are heavy and stops us from sharing our superpowers, it's because our brain is saying, our ego is saying, we got this. We don't need nobody. And that is so far from the truth. Welcome to the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast. Here, you will raise your awareness to what is, and most importantly, what isn't working for you in all areas of your life, to identify your unique abilities and superpowers, to take purposeful action. We all get stuck, and now you can unstuck yourself with me every week. Now let's get unstuck, peeps.
What's up, peeps? It's your boy, Mike Boogie, aka Mike Lane, taking over at a fitting point, because I think, I think by the time this episode drops, it'll be around Halloween time, yeah?
Yep.
The Boogie Monster taking over. So allow me to introduce myself. I am Mike Boogie, aka Mike Lane. I am a DJ, a podcast producer, and a loyal listener and follower of the Unstuck podcast, the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons, where she gives us the opportunity to highlight our personal stuck moments and create a safe space for others to share their stories and voices as well. And so it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce to you the Crystal Simmons.
Hey.
Yeah. Cool. No, this has been a long time coming, because every time we get on the phone, every time we have a conversation, it's dope, and it opens up a whole can of worms that could easily transcend or go into multiple episodes in and of itself. But it's been really cool to be a part of this project. So first of all, thank you for setting this up and creating this space, because it's really aligned a lot with where I've been in my personal journey and helped me get out of my personal stuck moments. So if we starting out, the little Michael who paved the way to sit before you today has always been creative, has always been inquisitive, and has always been really attuned and really interested in hearing other people's perspectives. And really, that's one of the reasons why I call my radio show Foresight Radio, because I enjoyed looking at the insights from others, whether it be through music, through art, and their experience, and gleaming what we can from it and using that to move forward. So I really appreciate this podcast, because it does just that. It highlights people's experiences, people's perspectives, and shows dope people doing dope stuff.
Yes.
which is a vibe in it of itself. So little Michael has always been asking questions and messing around with sound, and just the kindred nature of my experience has allowed me to come into contact with you, Crystal. And so
yes,
I feel like in that regard we're definitely kindred spirits, as I know you too are inquisitive and you too are intuitive. So tell me a little bit about little Crystal and how she's paved the way for the person that she is now.
Oh man, I have asked this question I don't know how many times, and literally I had body chills when you asked me that. Little Crystal was just like little Michael, and many of the little people or peeps that I interviewed before. Inquisitive and curious and just wondrous of, what is. I would say I was quiet. Actually, I'll take that back. People have said I was quiet. So I literally internally said, I'm quiet. I must be quiet. Because I sat with it and I'm like, wait, I never said, Crystal, you're quiet. I would just be observing. And so that observation mind frame turned into people defining me as being the quiet one. Damn, I've never said that out loud or processed that. And it's literally me just pulling information like, oh, I wonder, like me being curious. But when I would ask the questions, some people, it felt like they didn't have the answers. So their response, or maybe they'd never been asked the question. Because I get that now, even with my clients, that I'll ask the question, they're like, oh, wow, that's a good question. And then my follow-up is, why is that a good question? And typically they'll say, nobody has asked me that before. So little Crystal was asking those questions that nobody had asked those people before. And I interpret it as they didn't want me to ask the question. So part of this was my fault, or not knowing. There's different perspectives.
There's different perspectives.
Different responses and things of that nature. So I'm thankful now. Little Crystal always knew what was true for us, for that moment, the future, and even past Crystal, who I am now.
That's cool.
Just to keep going. But I will say, Little Crystal helped me realize all those things that made me who I was back then has allowed me to create business, the connections, the partnerships, the friendships, the relationships. Two things I've always done: asking questions and talking. I literally am building an empire of doing those two things. And it's super dope to acknowledge that and show that and experience it, especially to do it for others as well.
That is really cool to see. Whoa, bro, you touched on a lot, but I truly appreciate that because, you are good at asking questions and talking to people. And now using your superpower, or actually, I'll work backwards a couple of steps. You had a really powerful quote in one of your previous episodes where you said, don't punish yourself for learning, you know? And it's hard not to punish yourself when those labels that people put onto you, whether it be quiet, and you were just interpreting that as observant, and some people can interpret that quiet label as oh, I'm shy, that's a bad thing. That's your superpower. And you taking the time to be able to develop that superpower and now use it to get you paid, or even beyond that, to create really dope spaces, both for yourself and for others, is a really beautiful thing to be able to see and to be able to say, bro, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So on this episode, we had the impetus for this particular one, this scary season episode. It's Crystal's villain origin story. Yeah. Which and that like we were just discussing, labels can be powerful. And so when I say villain, I don't mean it in any sense of a negative connotation. I just mean it. And like, sometimes villains are justified. There's a villain, one of my favorite villains on like the Teen Titans Go series is a veterinarian, and he's just wreaking havoc. Why? Because he went to school for twice as long, knows twice as much as the average doctor, and gets half the respect. So playing into your superpower and disregarding those labels that people put on you, and then also developing your superpower and honing your skills is something that I find really important. So my question for you is, when did it flip for you? When did you realize, like, hey, I've always been good at asking questions. I've always wondered why. But beyond that, taking it to the next step and trying to figure out if there are things that are wrong, how to fix them, or like the reason behind it all. So what if you could pinpoint it in your mind, when was the moment where the switch clicked, where you were like, you know what, I need to start doing this. I need to start networking and branching out and making my power work for me?
That the first response that I have comes from the idea of me being the good one. And I'll expand upon that. Where I go to school, I still had thoughts of doing hood rat shit with my friends.
Yeah.
Like,
get into it.
I wanted to, but I was so scared of disappointing my parents, scared of getting a whooping, scared of being grounded. Like, that fear was real for me. I just didn't feel like being grounded. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that I was devoid of those thoughts. It was just like, I really like talking on the phone with my friends. So I don't want to be grounded. So I'm not going to skip school. But I kept trying to skip school and I could not skip school.
Yo. Unsuccessful at skipping school is that's a knack. That's a different kind of skill.
Like,
but look, it's not for lack of trying.
yes, like I was like one of my homies, her name was Tracy. I was like, Tracy, today I'm leaving at lunch, and she was like, okay, Crystal, and
Uh-huh. How
but
far did you make it?
oh, I didn't even get up and walk away. Like it was now we had the conversation, and now I was like, all right, so what time are we leaving? And it was just like, no, I'm not going. And part of that was literally just the fear of being in trouble. It wasn't so much of I don't want to tarnish who I am. I don't want people to wanted to do all the shits.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to that of me being a coach, I realized in these conversations, I enjoy asking those questions and people just being like, oh, wow. Oh, I never thought of that. Never thought of that. Just like you were speaking about perspectives. It allows me a gift of a different perspective that I didn't have. Yesterday at the retreat, I was sharing with the team, and we'll get into that later. They were sharing stories of their life. And I'm like, y'all, I can't live all of your lives. So when you share stories, just a teensy bit, it expands me as a coach because then I get to share. There were 30 people that I get to share 30 different stories with my clients, including my stories, including the people I interviewed, and to connect us all and say, we're not alone. We're not in this by ourselves. But when we get that shame, doubt, and fear, all of those feelings that are heavy and stops us from sharing our superpowers, it's because our brain is saying, our ego is saying, we got this. We don't need nobody. And that is so far from the truth of what we see.
Absolutely.
In those things.
Yeah.
So as a coach, I'm glad you asked that question because when I first started, I didn't want to offend people. Like I would feel certain things. I would sense there's more to what they're saying, but I was cautious and scared to call it out because little Crystal would have probably been punished or isolated. Like, all right, I don't know where that question come from. That's a little bit too much. And then, so that is still real, and I'm still working on that. It's still real. And every time I follow that intuitive hit of you said this, but you did
but
that.
Did you mean? Yeah, right.
Yes, like it's not which one is true because and I always when I say it and they're like, oh wow. They might react a certain way, and I'm in my head, I'm like, oh shit. And they're like, you know what? I'm glad you said that because now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm like, Crystal, you gotta trust that intuitive hit. I'm not trying to offend. I don't want to offend, but I'm also not your friend who's gonna like cheer you on. It's like, yeah, it's cool, girl. Like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna tell you what you want to hear. That is not why I'm here. I'm here for us to address the uncomfortable. So in order,
and the truth is uncomfortable.
Yes, and who am I to think that because I'm asking the uncomfortable that I'm not going to feel uncomfortable? And that's the whole thing that just unraveled. Thank you for that, Michael. Thanks.
Yo, absolutely, because that is a really good point. That's really good. The more you ask, the more you find out. And I am a firm believer in intent definitely manifests itself in actions. And a lot of people do things and a lot of people say things, but don't really give time because there's power in words, you know?
Yes.
There's power in the way that you think and the way you breathe life and death into a situation based off the way that you speak about it, right? And so you asking those questions and forcing people to confront the misalignment of what they're saying and what they're doing is really cool. And I think it honestly does make you a better friend because we don't need friends that are just yes men. We don't need friends that just tell us what we want to hear. We need friends that expose us to the ugly truths, which sometimes they may be. Sometimes the truth is beautiful, but for the most part, it can get kind of dark. But you highlighting that and giving people the opportunity not only to explain themselves and to really be like, oh yeah, you know what? I guess you're right. It doesn't make sense that way. But also to be able to do that for yourself requires some real skill and some real introspection. So I definitely respect that. That's really cool. So before I get into my next question, I do want to give you a chance to highlight what you've been doing. You mentioned the retreat, the summit that you led recently, and I know it was dope. Just based off this conversation alone. So yeah, say a little bit more about that for those of us who aren't hip to what you've been on for the past couple.
I have to give a huge shout out to the creator.
Yeah.
To all that is.
Praise be. That's
it's in life, we do have the tendency to want certain things, and that's beautiful to have an idea of where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
The challenging part for us is trusting the process, that you aren't really chasing the final destination. You're welcoming in the feeling. What does that final destination feel like? Because you could get trapped in, this is what I want it to be, and then it's not that, and you're like, oh, I failed. What was the feeling? So I asked that because I was it's so many. I love connections. I love people. I love this life. So there was a gentleman from a networking event that posted on Facebook that he was looking for a business coach for an opportunity to lead a group of entrepreneurs, and they're looking for someone to facilitate that. And I was like, oh, this is dope. This was probably about 4 months ago. And I looked at what he posted. Shout out to Antonio with the MBL networking group. But anyways, he posted it and he had mad people comment. Like, I can help. I'm a coach. Like, when I say mad people, Mike, I think it was like 30, 40 people who commented.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, he probably already found his person. This probably is pointless, but I messaged him anyways, like, hey, do you have any more details about the position? And he texted me back and was like, yo, I think you'd be dope for this, actually. Let me hook you up to the hiring person. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So if you're listening, my doubt creeped in. This is pointless. This is stupid. That is my ego. That is my voice saying, let's stay small. Remember, you're quiet. Let's go to that tiny spot where we can feel like we're kind of doing stuff, but we ain't really doing stuff. So I messaged him and I was like, oh, okay. Got the interview. And this is my first interview I've had as a coach in person. Everything else has been either Zoom, emails, people texting me. So I'm like, this is kind of dope. Like, not only am I sharing my abilities with them, but I have to do it in person.
It's a different skill. To be able to turn it on in person, the mannerisms, the person-to-person interaction, it hits different through a screen. Yeah,
it really does. And I didn't recognize it until I got there. It was like, this is cool. I get to be in person. And I remember just sharing what I could offer. And there was a requirement for the entrepreneurs who were taking the program to come away with. And I was like, that is awesome. However, there is this assessment. It's called Energy Leadership Index. And I apply this assessment to all of my clients to start off with, because if we're not highlighting what is keeping us stuck, limiting in our beliefs, having us assuming certain things, we're not going to be able to really take sustainable action.
The next steps. Yeah, absolutely.
So I kept sharing the Energy Leadership Assessment. And during the interview, my intuitive hit, like I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get this. And it wasn't a bad feeling. It wasn't a good feeling. It was just a feeling. And I was very content. I had never felt that before. And I said at the end, if I'm not the person for you all, please consider me for other opportunities. I'm ready to share this with other people. I don't even remember what I said. And so I left, called my husband, and he's like, how do you think it went? I was like, I don't know. I'm literally in the middle. I kept telling people like, there's like, no, this is for you, which I appreciated. But I was like, I don't know. Kept saying, I don't know, even though I knew. But anyways,
there's that intuition. But
fast forward, I emailed the ladies who interviewed me and thanked them for their time. I appreciated them. And then one of the ladies was like, hey, we have a referral and please reach out. We want to connect you with someone who's looking for a facilitator. And I was like, dope. Reached out, told them, hey, let's link up on Zoom. This is two different ladies. We got on Zoom, share the ELI with them, the Energy Leadership Index assessment, that experience that I offer of them taking an assessment. It's like 20 minutes, but it's not those assessments that are putting labels on you, that is telling you this is who you are. This is where you're lacking. This is where you need to do better at. It's about what is your attitude on a day to day. And then how do you change when you're stressed or if some type of challenge is thrown to you? Wow. So it shows you how you react. Crystal AAA's. It is so powerful. And I'm thankful I didn't even have to create it, but I get to facilitate that awareness of, I actually am in this energy level of opportunities where I'm ready to learn, or maybe I'm always in this heavy level energy of I'm the victim. Lack. So highlighting that shows you like, oh crap, that is why I'm not receiving the things I want, because I'm unconsciously thinking there's a lack. I'm unconsciously saying people want me to lose. I'm unconsciously saying there aren't any opportunities. Your words are your command. No opportunities, then you said it.
Yeah, like exactly.
So when I'm sharing this with them, there's like, yo, we need you for the facilitation. And I was like, really? Because I asked them, I was like, we're having this dope conversation. I was like, I just want to clarify. Are you choosing me to be your facilitator for your event? And they were like, yes, send us the proposal. And thank God I had already done a proposal for my podcast for having a sponsor. The Bates Orthodontics team, which is dope and amazing. That I shared about. Yes.
Yeah.
It started there. I just implemented that proposal, and we started with a retreat of 30 individuals taking the Energy Leadership Index, which is major.
That is major indeed. Yo, shout out to you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is really dope. That's really dope. That's cool to see. First of all, yeah, shout out to the creator, because the skills and the people that he put into your life are paramount, bro. And in that regard, like, I appreciate you, first of all, walking them through the leadership index, as opposed to like doing like the regular stuff that usually people do, like the Myers-Briggs and things like that. Because I think that people like really take those labels. Like, you know, myself, I think I'm a INTP, an intuitive, internal thinking person. We'll go with that. Yeah, but I started feeling like it was better to be the opposite. It was better to be a type A, or, you know, now I'm mixing up scales, but like better, rather than using my superpowers for what they were, and rather than realizing that every day I'm presented with a new set of challenges, and the way that I choose to think about those challenges and breathe life into that situation is how the situation will go. So like you were manifesting you getting this position, or you leading the summit, doing it well and changing people's lives is an important step. And it starts inside and it expresses itself outside. Like, you know, that alignment of what you're saying and your actions, which is so cool to see. That's so dope to see. Yeah, look, this villain origin story. This is a cool episode to be able to talk to and see how you were continuing to live in your purpose. I'm really happy for you for that. That's dope, man.
Mike, I want to add, when you said the villain origin story, we all have equal parts of the things that we see in other people that irritate the F out of us. Like, I hate when that person does that. You're acknowledging that because you do that as well. And it's a part of you that you don't like. So I will, at first, when you said the villain origin story, I'm like, huh? But that is me judging and questioning. Yeah, Crystal, you're not perfect. You do all of the things, but I might not do some things as much as others. But that's not based on me being better or good. It's based on how I was brought up. It was based on my experiences. It's based on my own thoughts and beliefs. So I now, it's funny, the more you say it, just in these, 20 minutes, I'm not feeling anything activating in
towards
me.
it.
You say yes.
And I'm so glad you said that, because that is truly the reason why I'm appreciative, first and foremost, that you allowed me to do this. But secondly, like I wanted to highlight, that's something that we've been talking about this entire time in this last, it's been a really good conversation. It's only been 20 minutes? That's nuts.
Yes.
But yeah, just highlighting the power in words and how you choose to perceive them and how you choose to make them your own. So although like, cause comic book and like textbook heroes, they're also not perfect.
Yes.
And if we're staying in the media vein, I don't know, have you seen the show The Boys on Amazon?
No.
Interesting.
Tell me about that though.
Yeah, it's a good show. I would recommend, but it is for adults. And I would just say this: it's about all of the things that you don't think about going wrong with people with superpowers, and they're also people still, right? And so everybody has a little mad villainy in them in some way, shape, or form. But what you choose to exercise and how you choose to perceive your personality and your superpowers is really what's most important. So yeah, it's cool to be able to talk to you, because you're out here doing it. You are out here doing it, and you are giving the people the space to be able to do it for themselves too. So I appreciate, first of all, how you think and how you phrase things, and being in your life, because point two, the people in your life are most important.
Yes.
And yeah, that's
and
cool.
I wanna shout Michael out, everybody, because I love a good connection. Because the challenge I have is, how far back do I want to go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Starting Crystal Clear Purposes, I knew I wanted a team. I didn't know what it would look like. And I will highlight the fact that even going to school, I gravitated towards men or boys. Well, if I'm younger, it was boys. Like, I wasn't out here chasing these adults.
And look, if you're after a sugar daddy, finesse your bag. I'm not gonna hold you. It is.
No,
what it is.
I've always been the older one. So it's never been. Anyways, I get sidetracked. I ended up taking. Well, I remember saying, like, Crystal Clear Purposes, I want to have a team of people around me who are dope and able to do the things that I can kind of do, but they do it way better than me. Or maybe I can't even do it at all. And it started with my brother-in-law creating the music for my podcast, because he's just dope in himself. Like, and so me reaching out to him and I working together, him appreciating, like, hey, I need more music. What about this? Can you do this? He's like, yeah, I love it. It's always fun doing this. And that's always made me feel good, because I want to be able to have a good time with the people I'm working with. And I also recognize, being a creative, you move in your own flow. So I didn't want to ever come off and interrupt that flow. So he started doing my music. The podcast will be a year on December the 1st, 2022, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
I knew we would get here. I didn't know how, but I knew we would get here.
Manifesting it. Power in words. There you go.
And I also knew, at a certain point, I'm going to implement someone to come in and help me with the podcast. And I would say probably about 2-3 months ago, started saying it out loud. I became very intentional of, I had the thoughts for months, since I started. So almost a year I had the thought. And I told a couple people, maybe 3 or 4, Michael, but your partner, Kara, which we interviewed, that episode will come out before this one.
Yeah.
Oh man. I just happened, she was singing, she shared, she does her own music. And I was like, hey, do you produce it? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm looking for an editor for my podcast, just saying it off a whim. And her mentioning your name, I was like, dope. You being responsive, you communicating back and forth, you being open and honest. Like, you had a lot of things going on and you responded, but then the other response was a little bit later. You apologized for that. It's like, oh, just FYI, my responses won't take this long next time. It's major. because it showed me that you are aware of who you are, you're aware of what your values are, and you express that without me asking. You know, we still hadn't talked, and
yeah.
I know life is lifing. So you being able to open up and say, hey, just FYI, that won't happen like in the future. I'm excited. But I'm like, this is dope. Like, and every time we've gotten on, it's been just doper and doper. And it's more than I can expect. People are loving the clips that I post for the episodes. Like, Michael, you are extremely talented. And
thank you.
It's very easeful. And it's challenging me as a partner to say what it is I need and want. And you being like, I could do that. Or can we do this? Like, you're not just saying, you're not a yes, ma'am either, which is super important.
Yeah. Wow. I appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot. Because you see me, Crystal, you do. And that's one of the things that I've always struggled with. Like baby Michael always wanted to be seen, but didn't want to be the center of attention or the spotlight.
Me too.
Yeah. So with that being said, I appreciate the opportunity not only to flex the creative muscle, but just to be seen. Like I'm proud of what I do. The clips are dope. They are definitely a labor of love. The whole show, being able to work on this dope ass podcast is a labor of love. So I appreciate you for that opportunity. And it's taken a lot to get to where we are today. Is how far back do we want to go? Long story short, I got into the medical field thinking that it was the end all be all, and that I would put my whole self, or the self that wanted to be creative, on hold until I got paid. Right? That didn't work out, sufficient to say. But it is really cool to now be walking. It feels like I'm walking in my purpose. And the more that I do that, the more that I put myself out there, the more that I manifest more positive things for me. You know, the creator is putting things in my life and people in my life where I'm able to, you know, get on and talk my shit, because that's all I really would ever wanted to do.
Say more about the medical field. How did you get it? Because again, y'all, we're still new to this relationship, so we're constantly unraveling some things. So say more about the medical field. How did you get in?
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's a good question. It's a long and convoluted story. But
we like those stories. Just FYI.
Yeah. My father's a physician. My grandmother was like one of the first Black nurses and to graduate from her program out of Meharry.
Wow.
And she was doing big things. My grandfather's an oral surgeon. My uncle's a dentist. So it's always been something that's in my mind, like, medicine's the way to go. The medicine is the way for the lanes, right? That's our lane, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so really, you had a really cool point that you mentioned in one of your previous episodes, where you were like reaching for the highest thing that you could see. And so as such, I strove to be like them, because they're great men and they do great things in my life. Great men and women, excuse me. But I was striving to be like them, and always putting my whole self on the back burner in doing so. So when I was going through school, I knew that I really liked art, and my mom was always like, you should do art, you should pursue music, you should pursue something creative, because I think you'd go really far in that. And I was like, forget that. I don't want to be a starving artist. I need to get paid, right?
Oh, yes.
So, and trying to mesh the things that I thought would make me get paid. And also trying to be creative. I always noted that I'm a fan of a catchy jingle of marketing. I like the way that department stores and commercial industries are set up. Like you walk into a Walmart, and what you need to buy is all at eye level, and they create things that are colorful, eye-catching. There's slogans that make you want to, right? You know, Febreze. Everybody knows what Febreze is. That's a household, right? And so really being interested in that and the art behind that, but also the science behind that. There is physiological factors that make people more prone to buy things. Like, you know, the dopamine that you experience when you feel like, this product accomplished my needs. The serotonin that you experience from, like, you know, like, I know for sure this is going to help me out. So the oxytocin that you get from connecting with the product, like there's a whole lot of science that goes into it. And so being able to mesh that, I decided to chase the medicine bag. And so I was like, I majored in neuroscience, minored in bio. And I had always been doing my art stuff on the side. I was fortunate to be gifted a set of turntables while I was in undergrad. So while I was doing my day thing, doing research and really flourishing on that side, I was also at night, doing my flicky, and rocking parties. And I knew that ideally that's really what I wanted to do. But I knew first and foremost, I needed to be able to provide myself with a way to eat, right? You can't fight.
As my stomach growls. Hopefully y'all didn't hear that.
Yeah. That's a good mic. That's a really good mic because it picked up all of that. But it's all good. I'll edit it out. But yeah, so I applied to med school. And I didn't get in, and it was the first time that things didn't work out. But it was a really freeing experience because I knew for a fact that if I hadn't gone for it, I would have been mad, right? If I had that doubt in my mind, like what if? And I don't like to live with regrets. That's one of the things that I don't do. I like to take ownership of life, my actions, and like I don't live life with regret. So I shot my shot and it was like, no. But my training has taught me all things in the universe, they keep traveling in the same momentum until something of an equal or greater force changes that momentum. Second law of physics, right? So with that being said, I was traveling down the route of medicine until I got burnt out as being a scribe. I was working in the hospital and I was trying to get my master's in public health. And the more that I learned, the more that I saw, the more I was like, ooh, this system is broken. And I have a lot of questions and no one's able to answer those questions. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's a money-making scheme and I get it. And so I'm trying to rock the boat and make sure that people that need to be, because I've always been a big fan of advocacy and making sure that people are represented. And so trying to do that, it left me more disheartened with the whole field than anything else. And so I jumped ship and I was working for a healthcare consulting company where I thought my experience would give me an opportunity to change the face of healthcare. It didn't work out the way that I thought it would because, like we've acknowledged, not everyone likes to be asked questions. And I've learned, my experience has shown me that there's a way that you approach asking questions that, well, you have a different take to it. But like mine was, I can be quite abrasive when I want to. And there's power in words and my tongue cuts when I wanted to. But I didn't realize that I was cutting by also asking questions. And so the more that I asked questions, the more I was also cutting away things that didn't need to be in my life. And so with that being said, now I'm here and it's given me the opportunity to be able to do all the things that I love to do, which is to be creative, to be an advocate, to meet dope people, to network, to talk my shit, just to be me. And it doesn't feel like I'm wearing a mask all the time. It doesn't feel like I'm fighting a broken system. I'm making change in my own way. Yeah. Yes. And so that's the abridged version, but you could catch my autobiography. That's the fire that could, the fire that keeps on burning. But I digress. Yeah, man. So it's been really cool. And I'm really thankful for the people that I have in my life. Kira's episode was dope. And it reminded me that I'm really thankful for her first and foremost, because, without her, we wouldn't have met. And she's cool people. Exactly. Yeah. And I appreciate the people that I have in my life because they push me to execute. And if I can go on one more tangent, I think I spent a lot of time being reflective and introspective for this conversation because there was something that I've been meaning to ask you, which I'll get to after this aside. But the people in your life are so important because they see you. Yeah. They see you in a way that's hard to see yourself. One of my proudest moments, I was talking to Kira about it. One of my proudest moments in life was being asked to speak at my high school graduation because it wasn't something that I campaigned for. It's not something that I was like passing out flyers like, hey, vote for me so I can speak. And I wasn't valedictorian. I just, was just doing me on a day-to-day basis. And I would just talk to people. I would ask them their perspectives and never really trying to pry more than people wanted to share with me. But people were so willing to share with me and feed into me. And so I only felt right to feed back into them. And somewhere along the lines, they liked what I had to say, I guess. And so they asked me to speak at that graduation. And so that threw me for a loop for weeks. I was just like writing, trying to come up with eloquent and thus and therefore and hence hereafter we shall be, right? And I had this immaculate speech, air quotes around immaculate for those of y'all who can't see me. And I got up there and I froze, and I was like looking at the people who were waiting to hear what I had to say and who had, voted to hear me speak. And I got up there and just went off the cuff. I was like, you know what, y'all, I prayed for it. I prayed the creator would speak through me and convey a message that needed to be heard for whoever's personal journey or the glorification of the kingdom and the higher power, right? Yes. So just going with that and running with it. And I don't remember half of what I said, but it's never, people never remember what you say, is how you make them feel. And to this day, like I'll run into high school friends, my best friend that we were hanging out, and he mentioned the speech, and I completely forgot that it was something that I had done. But he was like, yo, man, like you are dope. And you were continuing to like in my speech, he remembered the fact that it was like, yo, class of 2015, dating myself here, but class of 2015, get out there and do dope stuff, because life is short. Life is incredibly short. Take advantage of every opportunity. Make sure you meet people, learn about their perspectives. And so I completely forgot about all of that. And this has been something that I've just been operating subconsciously. And it's gotten me to where I am now and given me the opportunity to meet you. So all that to say, is there anybody that you would like to shout out in your life that has, because I know there are a lot of people that have tried to put labels and tried to put stipulations, but your team, and this is your opportunity on your origin story on your origin story episode to shout out the people in your life, because they're important. They're important. I appreciate my shout out for sure.
I want to shout out my uncle he's passed. He's been passed for, goodness, maybe 20 years. He's always seen me in a way that I didn't necessarily see myself. He would always highlight me and my sisters. He was always open and welcoming and fun. And I was always curious. And when he passed, my mom let us keep some of his stuff, and I got one of his CD players, and he had a John B CD in there. And at the time, I loved John B. And I was like, my uncle listens to John B. And I still have that CD, that disc.
Cool.
But he always told my mom if he ever came back in the afterlife, he would be like a butterfly. So whenever I see a butterfly, I think of him. And That's really he was amazing. And I wish my husband had a chance to meet him, because I think he would have, they would have gotten along really well. And I wanted to highlight what you had shared, Michael, when you said, I think you said you don't have any regrets, or felt like the what ifs. That's what you said. You're like, you don't like living in the what ifs. And the what ifs are, they're heavy. The what ifs are your true soul, the essence of who you are, whispering, sometimes even yelling to you. And the reason why people say it's better or it's easier to just do it than have that what if, because when you don't do it, you're literally saying fuck you to yourself, to your soul, to your this fear is way more important than what your soul and the essence of who you are deserves to be.
That is real. That is real. And I appreciate you for saying that, because on my personal stuck moment, it's trying to get outside of that fear and acknowledging that it's okay to have those feelings, but not to play into it, and not to feed into the things that'll keep those things what if, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and to ignore those things. So I truly appreciate you for saying that. I truly appreciate you.
I'm telling you, like therapy, coaching, having other perspectives that are experts, and they're experts because they have like hundreds of different perspectives. They're not experts because they necessarily know more than you. It's just that they had so many experiences where they could be like, look at what has happened. Look at what is actually the truth. And my therapist said, she keeps telling me, and now I got it down pat and I'm telling everybody about dialectic thinking, where two opposites can be true at the same time. Our brain is like, no, it can't. I could be mad at you, Michael, and be like, I am mad at you. And I'm pissed off that you didn't X, Y, and Z. And I could say, but I also need you to help me with this. People are like, no, you can't. No, you can't. If you're mad, don't talk to him no more.
Don't speak to him.
And my question is, how helpful is that for you to say, if I'm mad at you, I'm not speaking to you? And sometimes it's acceptable. But in life, in work, in relationship, people aren't going to think the way you think. And y'all will probably never agree. However, you cannot agree with me, Michael, and I can still have a dope partnership with you. You know what I mean? And that's like a coworker, a boss. Like, I don't like the way you lead. However, I will say what I need from you is for you not to always check on me, because when you do, I feel like maybe I'm not doing something correctly. Where's the happy medium? The compromise.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because in that alone, there are layers to how we perceive it, because you could absolutely be mad and be justified, but knowing that you still need or want this person in your space and you need something from them is a lot. So being able to take it a little bit further and think about, I may be mad, but I also know I need to verbalize that, you micromanaging me is not the wave. That's pretty cool, because that takes an upper level of introspection that I think you have to like sit down and really process the way that you are feeling and the way that you are thinking in that moment before you take action. That's I appreciate that for sure. I appreciate that. That's really interesting.
This is like, so y'all, this is why Michael and I are together, for this reason. Like, one, I didn't know you majored in neuroscience, right? That's what you said?
Indeed.
That has me intrigued, because the more I speak or hear people who have experienced more than me or have spoken to more people and gathered all that experience, they talk about really digging into how the brain works. And I highly believe if people understood just a teensy bit of it, like the vagus nerve. I just heard somebody sharing that, like the reset button of when you're freaking out, you're stressed out. I'm like, oh,
yeah, that's my favorite trick.
Oh, so say more about your trick. Like, tell more about the vagus nerve and whatever you know. Like,
well, limited knowledge, and make sure, please. I definitely don't want to spread misinformation, so always please fact check me. And everything that I share has been from my experience, and you can take with it what you do. Eat the fish and spit out the bones, as I say. But long story short, the vagus nerve is the central nerve that basically controls your breathing, your heart rate, and things like that. But it's stimulated by other parts of the brain, like the amygdala, which is like the fear center. So you see something, your fear center is like, whoa, we are stressed. And so then your heart rate increases, your blood flow starts to constrict, and you start finding it harder to breathe. But one of the ways to reset that, like you said, is just to sit back, take a deep breath. And the body has very cool, like, in addition to lymph nodes and things like that, there's pressure points, acupuncture, things like that. There's a lot of truth and a lot of science to Eastern medicine, and it's pretty cool. Get into it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so my trick for when I'm stressed, you have two little divots on the inside of your eyebrows. If you press that with your nose, right above your nose, if you press that with your thumbs and then just work your way out along your eyebrows toward your temple, and then start massaging your temples with your thumbs. Yep. Yeah, it feels nice, right? And just repeat that step of bringing what's on the forefront of your mind out to the side and moving it out the way, just removing the stress and just thinking like, is this really as stressful as I think it is, or do I need to just take a step back and elevate? But giving yourself that time to like relieve that stress and then to breathe is really all you need. That, and if you ever have a headache, in between your thumb and your forefinger, there's a meaty muscle.
Yep.
And so if
I
you work
massage
that to the
that.
back, yeah, towards where the bone and the muscle meet,
Yes.
yeah, that's a pressure point, and that'll relieve some headaches as well.
I don't get a lot of headaches, but I notice sometimes, depending on the exercises I do, whatever might get tight. So I'll just find myself just pressing and like, wow, Michael, like we got to do this again, especially touching on that because I want to tap into more of that. I think we've on the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast, I want to do more than just talk. I want to implement action steps. And a lot of it has been like pausing, thinking, and now like what else can be done? And I definitely feel like educating ourselves of all the just the little major facts, yes, of our body and what we can do with it.
Because it's a powerful tool, boy. It's really incredible when you sit down and think about it.
I feel like the body is like a really fancy car that we bought just to buy, and now we don't even know how to work it. You know what I mean?
Hilarious. Like, yeah, because with most fancy cars, people just get in and drive. Like they don't think about the fuel that goes into it, the maintenance that goes into it, how you have to let your system warm up, especially in the winter. You got to let it cold, let it warm up if you have a cold engine. And the body is the same way. Like there today in preparation for this episode, you know, I realized I couldn't get up on a cold start. If we starting at 10, I couldn't get up at 9:45. It's like the brain can't work like that. You need some time to warm up to be able to get all those thoughts, all those crazy dreams, file them, use them for sure. Don't lose your dreams, but you gotta give the body the energy and the space that it deserves. It's a fancy car for sure. It's a fine-tuned vehicle that we use to navigate the space that we call life. Yeah. And it does more than you think it does. Oh yeah, likewise. Like
because one, shout out to you for recognizing, honoring our time together, my time and your time of I can't just jump up at 9:45. And I too realized I had to do the same for the retreat yesterday. So a few days ago, I started waking up like around 5:30. Typically, I wake up around 7:30. And I like the quiet. I like being the only one up. And now I want to go back to that because that's what I used to do when I worked at the hospital because I had to be there at 7.
Crack of dawn. Never sleeps.
And I'm ready. Like I got to meditate for almost an hour before the retreat and the day before that. And I was excited to wake up at 5 for the retreat, which before I'm like, oh my gosh, I have not waken up that early. But because I did it the day before, I was like, I got a lot done. I meditated twice. I walked the dog. I cooked dinner.
In the morning, right?
In the morning. Like it was like 9:30. I was like, oh my gosh, I got so much done. And I'm excited for the day because now in my head as an entrepreneur, I was like, I don't have to get up early. I don't have to. And that now that I'm recognizing that's low energy of saying I don't have to, I need to, all of that. That's negative heaviness.
Yeah.
And we talk about that through the energy leadership index. We'll highlight where's that low energy? Where is that feeling of needing to do something instead of it being, I get to, want to.
Yo, the get to versus got to, man, I appreciate you for bringing that up because that is one of the things that, you know, my journey has taught me. I had someone teach me that one. Ironically enough, it was at the last job I was working at, but he was like, there are two types of jobs. There's a get to and there's a got to. And, you know, in social media nowadays, we talk a lot about low vibrational this and it's a joke. It's a meme, but there is some truth to it. Not the way that Shawty's using it, but in this context, it is low vibrational to be thinking about like, this is something I got to do, or like, I can't do this, or the negative words. Because like, you know, like we've acknowledged there's power in words. So the get to versus the got to, like, is I got to is like a chore, but I get to, you look at it as an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a chance for you to expand. So it's something you can get to. You get to this bread. You
Yes,
get to
yes.
this opportunities. You get to experience
I get to rest.
new relationships. I get to rest. That's a key one. That's a key one.
Like I gotta rest. It's like, oh, you've been stressed out. You've been not sleeping.
Yeah.
And a brief overview of the energy leadership assessment. There's 7 different levels of vibration, energy, based off how you show up. And we all show up on all 7 of these levels, but the combination may vary depending on the person.
Interesting.
And it shows how you typically show up. What are your levels typically? And then it also shows where do you go when you're stressed or activated. And level 1 is that stuck. I am stuck. There are no opportunities. It is feeling like you're the victim. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening again? Why can't I? That energy. And then level 2, we won't go through all of it, but level 2 is the anger. So you're moving from now I'm stuck, I can't do anything. And then you move up a little bit to like, I'm pissed that I don't get to. So there's a different energy to like anger, defiance. Like I'm not doing that. And you might not know why you're not doing it, but at least you're not stuck where you're like, I don't know. The third is, you know what? I'm taking responsibility for this. I am pissed off, but maybe I could have told him a little bit more clear. Maybe I could, like you were saying, talking at work of maybe I could have shared that question of mine a little bit more delicately. Like, hey, instead of being like, why are y'all doing this way? That was Crystal's way. That was Crystal's old way. Why are we doing this? That's different versus, hey, I know y'all been doing it this way for a minute, and maybe I'm just not like keen to why y'all do it. Can you help explain it to me? So I'm taking responsibility of maybe I'm just not understanding this, or maybe I just don't know all the information. Whereas the second level is mad, I'm angry. Why are we doing this? The third is like, you know what? Let me, yes. Fourth is where I don't want to say most people. There are people who come from a service background of, I have to help people. I want to help people. My goal is to help. It makes me feel good to help. And that is where I came from when I entered the medical field. Sick people are in the hospital. I'll work at the hospital. Service. The downside to that, because all of the levels have advantages and disadvantages. None of them are good or bad. We all have them and they serve a purpose. But the key is, are they serving a purpose because it's helpful, or am I doing it because I'm just used to doing it?
Yeah, that's interesting. Or they could be like symbolic of the way that you're feeling, because you'll start moving subconsciously. I didn't realize until we started having this conversation that I was in those low vibrational states. I was feeling stuck and I was feeling angry and lashing out. And so as such, I didn't take, I did take it to step 3 of taking responsibility, but when I was at step 2, I was just moving, like just angry and couldn't figure out why. I was running to my biases and I was like being short with my partners and my friends, and like that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And it's neither good nor bad. I can't beat myself up for learning, like, right?
No,
but it is a good. That's a good way of thinking about that, because then you really start to think about, why am I acting the way I'm acting? That's interesting.
And that is what. That is why the assessment is so dope, because it's not about, Michael, you're bad, let's get out of this level 2. You are still getting stuff done. All of the levels have advantages. You get work done. The disadvantage is you might be short with your partner. The disadvantage is I'm not actually tapping into the people who actually fuel me and see me and can expand upon what I'm able to see.
Yeah.
So maybe we will go through all of them. So level 4 is, I said it was a service to others. So you are compassionate. you also do self-love for yourself. And for you, that could be with your turntables. That could be you kicking it with your homies like you did yesterday and receiving that love. So self-love, even though you're giving it to others, you also are giving to yourself in whatever way that looks like. However, the disadvantage could be, this is where I was at level 4 many years ago. The giving can leave you feeling frustrated, burnt out, overwhelmed, and then you dip back down to level 2 and level 1.
Woo! Wow, you are speaking to my soul.
Yes. This assessment is amazing. Like it's printed out, it's on paper, and it talks about the vibrations. Like they have this self-perception chart, which is circular. It's like this big circle. But as you move up the levels, you're reducing less stress. Or you're reducing stress, I should say, and you're experiencing less stress. And you also start to see opportunities. And that's where level 5 is, where it was like, I win, you win. There's so many opportunities around here. This is cool. If something were to activate you, Michael, you're not coming from an angry spot. You're more like, oh shit, I get to challenge myself. I'm gonna try this. See what happens. Okay?
Rise to the occasion.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's really cool.
It is so amazing. When I was doing the retreat yesterday and everyone had taken the assessment, they got their score or percentage of the different levels of how they show up. Keep in mind, they filled this out once. So whatever they were feeling that day, hopefully is a representation of how they show up typically. But again, they're only taking it once. So I stress to them, this is not about who you are. This is not permanent. It's just a glimpse of who you were or how you perceive yourself. And what do you want to do with that information? Do you love waking up in the morning? Do you love your conversations? Do you love, like, are you connected with the life that you're living? Or are you like, this is why I keep seeing the same thing, because I kept leaving job to job to job and kept getting the same results.
Same results. Yep.
I was operating in level 2 of why are we doing this? Why is this happening? Why is like, can we change this? Instead of being like, all right, what's the opportunity here?
Yeah.
I get to get paid. I have freedom.
That's interesting. Yeah. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yes. That's interesting. And the more you find yourself, because like you said, it's not a bad place to be. It's just something that is. So that's a fact of life. But the more you find yourself in the anger zone or the lower vibrational zones, the easier it is to get stuck. That's really wild. That's really wild. That's a lot to think on. And if for those of you listening, ladies and gentlemen, we have entered our think tank zone. So
we're doing it.
Mind your feet, mind your hands, keep them inside the vehicle at all time, because there is a lot to think on. So we'll start with, what was the name of this emotional intelligence wheel that we're talking about right now?
It's from IPEC. So that's where I received my certification. That's where the Energy Leadership Index assessment comes from. You can only experience that with a trained IPEC coach, which I am. I'm a certified professional coach.
Indeed.
And the wheel is called the self-perception chart. And it has in the center is level 1. And you mentioned this earlier about, you think about your thoughts are dependent on your actions. So each level has a core emotion or thought first. So we typically think something, and then the emotion comes with it, and then the action. Yeah. So you're not doing anything if you're in level 1 and you're stuck. Yeah, it's probably because you're thinking a certain thought or have a certain emotion of
those what ifs,
self-doubt.
Yeah.
The what ifs. So it makes sense that you're stuck.
Interesting.
So but the name of the chart is the self-perception chart, and that's with IPEC Coaching Institution.
That is cool. So is it too far to reach, or is it overstepping the bounds to be able to talk about your own journey in regards to the chart, and where do you feel like you are at? Are you stuck? Are you not stuck? Is this I am
I am
unstuck?
both.
And okay,
I
say
am
more.
both.
Say more.
Depending on what the topic is, what is my current stuck moment? I would say my current stuck moment is speaking more into my intuition openly with just anybody. Sometimes I'll have thoughts for myself and what I experience. I'm like, oh, does this person actually want to hear like how this thought came to me, where it just kind of hit me, or I got a feeling in my stomach, or I had like a warm feeling in my chest. Like I'm filtering out what I think they want to hear, and I'm stuck with that. And I want to speak it more freely and not it feel like, should I share this? Should I not share it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. My if I may, is I am not the licensed coach, but if I can offer any words of advice, my uncle has this really funny saying where he says, "Fuck them if they can't take a joke," right? Which I like on the surface level because J. Cole said it best: all good jokes contain true stuff, right? All good jokes contain true shit. And so by you saying your truth and speaking into your power and speaking to your purpose, based off your perspective and as you see it from an outside looking in, which is different from people's inside looking out.
Yes.
Like being unable to remove your face from the glass is something that's hard to do, but it isn't your responsibility to do. And all you can do is highlight people's they're not necessarily their flaws, or you're not picking at anything, but you are revealing the truths that you see. It's like truth it requires some perspective. And so changing those perspectives requires you not to care what they think. Fuck them if they can't take a joke. You said what you needed to say, and it was something that was weighing heavily on your head and your heart. And so you mentioned it as a good person. So continue to do that. I hope that you are able to unstuck yourself soon. But look, that's what's keeping us fed. That's the purpose of the podcast.
Yes. And thank you for that, Michael, because one of the coaching principles I was taught is every person we meet is a teacher and a student. Meaning I learn something from people I interact with. No matter what the experience is, I'm learning something. And fuck them if they can't take a joke. The immediate response I got was free them if they can't take the joke. And quote unquote, the joke for me would be me saying my truth. However that truth is, like whatever it looks like. And so, yeah, I'm going to take that. And this is shout out to Michael, because he was like, do your research, find out what is true for you. Don't just take my words. I want to echo that for this whole podcast. I'm speaking about my experiences, and then the people who come on, the same thing. I'm going to say free them as I tell my truth. And you all, anything that we share today, take tips, take little tidbits,
eat the fish and spit out the bones. Yep.
Spit out the bones. He already knew. I love it. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Crystal. It's been dope. This has been a cool conversation. It's been a really cool conversation. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And for those of y'all who are still listening, please feel free to follow me at Mike_BOOGI3 on Instagram. That's Mike Boogie. I'm a DJ. I'm a podcast producer. I am a lyrical MC. All that. So the most dopest, braggadocious, if something stinks, is me spitting with my morning halitosis. And on that note, I am going to go grab something to eat and get ready for the day. Truly appreciate you listening. Thank you so much for your time, Crystal. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk to you and learn about your experience. You're doing dope shit. So continue to walk into your purpose.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Excited to see what you bring in the future. Yeah.
I'm excited for all that we create. This shit is dope. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. Likewise.
Hey, peeps. So that was different, right? So that was Crystal's villain origin story with my new friend, producer, editor, vision maker, Michael. Thank you, Michael, for taking over the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast, especially because we are entering into a whole new month. But before we get to that, I have to say, because I say and I share and I encourage you to feel your feelings, during this whole process, I was feeling my feelings. Even knowing that he was going to take over and I would be interviewed, even when he started, I was like, ooh, wait a minute. Change feels different. Change feels uncomfortable sometimes. And not to say I didn't feel comfortable, but I could feel a shift when the tables were turned on me. So I'm just encouraging y'all to feel your feelings. And throughout the episode, I noticed my quote unquote feeling of control, because let's be real. Let's release what we presume to be as control. It induces the feelings. It induces you to feel those feelings, whether you acknowledge them or not. And I felt them. And I was like, and it was more of an alertness and like knowing that this is different. And I just chilled. I acknowledged that I don't have to do everything. And matter of fact, I don't want to do everything. I've said them multiple times. So allowing myself to feel those feelings and enjoy the process and be in the moment. So I had to share that with y'all. And now that I have my feelings wheel in front of me, I want to see if I can actually label it. So if I go in the center, if y'all don't know about the feelings wheel, Google the feelings wheel. There's so many different variations of it. Shout out to Sheila Battle. She actually introduced me to the feelings wheel at an event years and years ago, and I just cannot stop sharing it. So continue to share it. If you have just learned about it, it does everyone such a huge service to healing, to accepting, and that increases your peace, clarity, and joy of life. So in the moment, I would say that I was so if we go in the center, it's sad, mad, scared. I would go to anxious. I was scared and kind of anxious, like, whoa, wait a minute. Just because it was different. And different is okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is. So if you're listening to this episode, this newly revamped episode that Michael so geniusly asked me to do, as soon as he said, I was like, hell yeah, I want to do it. So I'm so glad we got to do it. It was amazing. We continuously have so many different deep introspective conversations. So it was nice to capture just a glimpse. We go deep, and I appreciate him for it. But if you're listening to this on the day that the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast is released, then you are aware that we're entering into my birthday month. Shout out to all the Scorpios, especially if your birthday's in November. I am an 11/11 birthday, which is dope as F, and I did not realize the dopeness until only a couple of years ago. So shout out to clarity, shout out to awareness. Also, because we're in November, because it's November the 2nd, means that the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast is about to turn 1. 1, y'all. It's about to turn 1. Can you believe it? I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. I have actually been through 4 different mics. I'm on a new mic. I'm on a new level. Hey, I'm on a new so hyped because we made it. Y'all, you came here with me. For those who've been here from the beginning of me recording in my closet with my phone for multiple episodes, bet you didn't know that. It was so much fun. It was so cozy. But yeah, it's time to grow. The podcast, December the 1st, will be 1 year old. Amazing. And we're going to do something different to acknowledge all the work that has been put into this show. Next couple of weeks, I'm going to release the top 3 episodes that you all ran those numbers up, that you repeatedly listened to, that you ran back. So we're going to run it back again and celebrate. And also, I'm going to take a mother effing break. Yeah, but it's my birthday month. Taking a break. The podcast is now crawling, it's walking, it's saying, crystal, it's saying dope. It's like, it's developing and it needs to rest. So I will be back December to give you we got to celebrate. We have to celebrate. So December the 2nd will be a celebration episode. Almost one. Can you believe it? And before you run, I wanted to let you know, to everyone who signed up for the Loving Me Through Friendsgiving brunch that takes place on Saturday, November the 5th. Hey! Be on the lookout for a detailed email regarding location, parking, a couple of Q&As that you might have. Feel free to reply back if we didn't hit all the spots of answering your questions. Please, we're here to help. We want to make this easeful. We want you just to show up and be your dope fly self, to connect with others. We'll have activities, food, drinks, but really meaningful, intentional conversations, especially at a time near the holidays. So just be ready to be loved up on, to be comforted, to be supported, to be receiving what you want and need and deserve. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm going to leave y'all with this because we did it. I did it. And I'm so happy I did. Thank you for going along with me on this journey, for your messages, text messages, inbox, sharing the episodes, you all sharing your aha moments with me, your growth. It does not go unnoticed. And you tend to remind me at the moments that I really need them the most. So I want to say thank you to you dope human who's here today listening. And can't wait to keep this going. Until then, stay unstuck, peeps. Bye. Yeah.
For Sight Media Production.